And very welcome to all of you dialing in from across the globe. We are extremely thrilled about the number of participants that have signed up for this webinar. And so we're really excited that you're all here and want to learn about the M&E Health Check tool. I think the number of registrations and feedback that we got is really testament to the ever-increasing importance of data analytics and data-driven decision-making. And data analytics in the broader sense is becoming a priority for many social and environmental organizations. However, the big question for many of you, and I think that's also why many of you are here in this webinar today, is how can you actually approach data analytics? How can you get started with your data roadmap? Where should you invest your limited resources? How can you tap into the potential of data in order for your organization to scale impact? And so we really hope that we can help you on this journey, that this tool will be a useful resource for you and that we can make your time worthwhile in this webinar. The M&E Health Check tool was launched last week officially. It is a free and publicly available resource. It's a diagnostic tool that assesses your organization's M&E systems, your data analytics and data management capacity, and provides an automated report for organizations that outline areas for improvement, and also gives you recommended solutions to some of these areas for improvements. Maybe a few words about IDinsight and LGTVP, because this tool is basically the result of a beautiful collaboration between the LGT Venture Philanthropy and IDinsight. And Tom will share a bit more, one of the panelists will share a bit more about how this came about. But first of all, a few words about IDinsight. It's a mission-driven global advisory, data analytics and research organization that helps global development leaders maximize their social impact. They offer a wide range of services, of data and evidence tools, from randomized evaluations to machine learning. They work with a wide range of clients, from governments to multilateral agencies, nonprofit organizations, foundations, etc. And LGT Venture Philanthropy is an independent charitable foundation. Our foundation strives to improve the quality of life of people facing disadvantages. And we also strive to contribute to healthy ecosystems and build resilient, inclusive, and prosperous communities. We support regionally rooted organizations across sub-Saharan Africa and India, in the areas that have scalable solutions in the area of health, education, and environment. So I'm really excited to have a super great panel with me today. Maybe quick introduction to the panelists. We have Neha, who's Associate Director at IDinsight. She has been our point of contact throughout the entire project, our collaboration over the past 2 years. Then we have Tom Kaigera, who's a partner at LGT Venture Philanthropy. He's been leading the project on LGTVP side. Then David Yamo. Hi, David. He is the former Senior M&E and Learning Officer at Masai Mara Wildlife Conservancies Association, a portfolio organization of LGT Venture Philanthropy. And he has also been involved in the entire process, in the entire iteration process over the last 2 years, testing, piloting the projects, the programs that we worked on. Then we have Akil. Very happy to have you here today. Akil is Senior Manager of Quality Assurance and Information Systems at Educate Girls. And Educate Girls is also a portfolio organization of LGTVP. It's a very inspiring organization that really masters very advanced data analytics methods, and you have drastically increased your impact by adopting machine learning techniques. So it's really an organization that we should all look up to and can hopefully learn also from your insights of your data journey. My name is Miriam. I'm the fellowship manager at LGT Venture Philanthropy, and I'm your moderator today. And as a moderator, I'd like to mention a few housekeeping items. First of all, the webinar will be recorded and will be available afterwards. Then after the panel discussion, we will have a Q&A session, and you can type your questions in the Q&A section. Good. And that's enough small talk from my side. I think we start with the panel discussion now. So Tom, maybe could you give us a quick overview, a quick background of how this collaboration between IDinsight and LGT Venture Philanthropy came about?
Sure. Thanks, Miriam, for the question. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I think let me start with saying that at LGT Venture Philanthropy, we believe that for philanthropic funding to be truly transformative, it needs to focus a lot more on organizational capacity building so that organizations can grow their impact, for example, embedding their solutions into wider systems, government systems. And that's why at LGTVP, we structure our support for our portfolio organizations around exactly that. So for like funding, our grant funding comes often as multi-year funding that can be used really flexibly to invest in organizational capacity building. And on the non-financial support, we try to be helpful to our portfolio by having people, our investment managers with business expertise, provide organization access to our talent platform or access to our network. So adding value and supporting organizations around capacity building is really a key mandate that we bring to the sector. And as we do that, and as the power of data, as I sometimes like to call it, the potential and power of data, wanted to tap into that potential. We asked ourselves a while ago, like, how can we better support our portfolio organizations on their journey? Talent is very rare in that space. So we need to build out more people to master this really important skill set. So we tried a couple of things, and luckily through Educate Girls, we got introduced to IDinsight, who helped us along that way to think through as a key thought partner what we can actually offer that makes that adds value to our portfolio organization. So we tried a couple of different formats, and ultimately we realized that the needs and the capacities in organizations are very diverse, are very different stages, and that's why understanding where an organization stands on that journey is like really the important starting point before we can add a more customized training, or we can build out specific capabilities, or like invest in a system. So I think that's what the M&E tool eventually is doing, and where we landed on that as an important starting point for that journey. It's the M&E Health Check tool that creates that baseline, the transparency where you are on that journey. And so that's how it all started. Back to you, Miriam.
And roughly 2 years later, we're here with a lot of learnings, and hopefully a great tool that will benefit many organizations across the globe. But now I think we're very curious to finally see that tool, hear what it's all about. And so maybe Neha, you have been involved in the project for the longest time, so it's really great to have you here on the panel discussion. Can you introduce us to the tool, and also based on your knowledge from IDinsight, because you work with so many social organizations, can you describe maybe some of the trends that you see in the sector? What are some of the main challenges that organizations face who have the desire to build their data analytics capabilities, and how will the tool actually help them?
Thanks, Miriam, for the question. Great to be here and great to be talking about the tool. 2 years since we first started discussing it. So it feels like a great achievement. So let me talk a little bit about how the tool works, and then what are some of the features of the tool before we get to the challenges that typically organizations in this sector face. So the tool is a very simple online diagnostic survey that social enterprises, nonprofits, NGOs can administer themselves. It assesses the existing monitoring and evaluation, data analytics, and data management systems capacity of these organizations. So it will really help organizations understand where they are on the ladder of data readiness and M&E capabilities. It also provides recommendations on where to devote limited resources for capacity development. So after a social enterprise or an NGO or a nonprofit fills out the survey and submits their responses to the tool, the final report identifies areas where additional capacity may be required to meet the impact objectives of the organization, and also provides resources for these areas as well. So if for example, an organization uses the survey and finds out that these are some of, for example, there are some gaps related to, how to create a theory of change or how to build out indicators that they want to measure over time. The report at the end of the tool will also provide resources for how the organization could go about building its theory of change, and how, what are some of the references that it can use to develop the indicator framework, etc. So I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as we go along. But in terms of what is so great about it, the first and foremost, it's free. IDinsight and LGT VP have developed this tool to be an accessible, easy to use diagnostic for organizations to understand where they are at with their M&E capabilities and identify what they need to climb the ladder of data readiness, like I said. The second feature is that it's fairly simple. The survey comprises only multiple choice questions for the most part. It's ideally to be filled out by the monitoring and evaluation champion within the organization. So it could be, for example, an M&E lead within that organization, or someone who has knowledge of the organization's existing M&E systems. Thirdly, the tool is evidence-backed. We developed it building on best practice literature on capacity building, including from the UN, the World Bank, and IDinsight's own internal resources. We also piloted the tool among 70 organizations, got a lot of really useful feedback from the organizations, and then improved upon the tool over the last year. And so what you see is a fairly robust tool at the end of the day, which has gone through a lot of literature review, a lot of piloting as well. I'm going to share my screen and show you what the tool actually looks like and how organizations could go about administering the tool themselves. So this is the landing page of the tool. What you see here is basic information about the tool and what it does. When you click on the Take Health Check assessment here, there are two versions of the tool. So one is the light version, which is about 50 questions, most of them multiple choice questions, and that could take about 20 minutes. The second version, which is the full assessment, is about 140 questions and takes about 60 minutes to complete. If you click on the request a demo, your email will reach us at IDinsight, and we will then follow up with the organization to schedule a call and walk you through the tool. So if there are any questions, or if you want a demo of how the tool works, someone in our team will be able to show you that. We'll schedule a call with you and walk you through the tool. So that's what happens when you start taking the assessment. On the page above, you see README, which will answer some questions about the tool, which is what is the purpose of the tool, who should fill this out, what are the different modules of assessment, etc. And it talks about what are the kind of outputs and results you will see, and what are some of the tips and tricks for completion of the survey, who should take the survey, etc. So that's what the landing page looks like. Going back to yeah, going back to sort of what happens once you take the tool, at the end of the assessment, survey recipients will receive an automated performance report. It evaluates the performance, it assesses the performance of the organization along three broad dimensions. One is mission alignment and strategy, which is basically trying to understand whether the organization has a theory of change, whether it has clearly identified indicators and targets, and whether these indicators and targets are linked to the organization's overall strategy and vision. It also asks questions about whether the organization routinely collects performance data, whether they use the data for strategic decision-making internally, and what is the kind of focus on learning and improvement using the data that is routinely collected by the organization. So that's the first module. The second module is a human resources assessment. So by that, we mean trying to understand whether the organization has an M&E team, what is the structure of the M&E team within the organization, what are the skills of the M&E team, right? What are the sort of data analytics capabilities of the M&E team? Are they familiar with survey methodologies? Are they familiar with evaluation techniques? Are they familiar with data analytics, visualizations, etc.? The third module in the tool is trying to understand the organization's existing M&E systems. So it has very detailed questions on the theory of change, the data collection resources that the organization uses, what are the different types of trainings that the organization provides to its M&E team, what are the data protection policies, what are some of the processes and guidelines around data collection, data analytics, what are the softwares that the team uses for data analytics and visualizations, etc. Based on responses to all these questions about the organization's strategy, data collection resources, existing M&E systems, human resources, and a bunch of questions related to all of these, the organizations then receive a report, which talks about not just sort of where the organization is at currently, but also in order to get to an improved data readiness, what are the different kind of investments that the organization needs to make? So I will share my screen and show you a little bit about what the report looks like once the organizations have administered the survey. All right, this is what a report will typically look like. This is a test report that we've generated for the purpose of this webinar. So it'll first show you the organization's overall performance. It is on a scale of 0 to 3, 0 being quite nascent, and 3 being a level of maturity in terms of M&E capabilities. And then once you go down the report, you will see opportunities for development. So this is where, for specific categories within these 3 modules that I described earlier, the organization will receive specific recommendations on what can be improved and what are some of the resources that the organization can use to work on these areas of improvement. So for example, if the organization is at very early stages of developing a theory of change, a results framework, indicator framework, then there are resources that are linked to figuring out how to design a results framework, what are some of the good practices with impact evaluations and so on. So for each of these categories, then there are specific recommendations and solutions that we provide, and these are sort of resources that are fairly recognized and out there in public domain, and so these can be accessed very easily by the organization to then work on these areas of improvement. So that's about the report that the organizations will receive at the end of the tool. And Miriam, to answer your question on sort of what are the general trends that IDinsight observes in the social sector, and how the tool can sort of help solve some of these challenges and roadblocks that organizations face. The first point I'd like to make is that organizations don't always know where to start when it comes to thinking about M&E. So, trying to understand where they are at and what is it that they need to do to sort of get better at improving their M&E capabilities. So there has been a lack of accessible resources and, more crucially, beginner-friendly resources. So if an organization is in a fairly nascent stage, understanding what is it that needs to be improved upon is not easily available as a resource. And so the way our tool helps with that is that it can be self-administered even by organizations that are in very nascent stages of data readiness and that are fairly new to an M&E system in general. The second challenge that we've seen often is that, existing assessments that are out there, there are a few assessments out there that help gauge an organization's M&E capabilities, but they're either not detailed enough or too detailed and time intensive. So as a solution, our tool provides a happy middle option in the sense that it is fairly detailed, but it can also be completed in one sitting. So it depends on which version of the tool you use. It could be completed anywhere between 20 to 60 minutes in one setting, and it's completely free. And then finally, I'd like to say that sometimes organizations may find it challenging to identify specific gaps in their data system. So it's one thing to do an assessment and know where you are at, but in order to, sort of identify specific gaps that can be worked on, this tool actually provides a very clear, personalized summary of performance for each of the aspects of data and M&E readiness. In a very easy to understand language with clear actionable next steps, like I showed you in the report that is generated. And it tells you what can be improved and how, and it provides resources for that as well. So for example, if the performance report indicates that the organization does not have a clearly defined theory of change or does not have enough financial resources for carrying out M&E, the performance report will also provide links to resources on how to conceptualize a theory of change, or what are some of the things that you should take into account when you're budgeting an M&E system. So it also provides these easily available links full of information. And so in that sense, the tool sort of improves upon what is existing out there in terms of providing a very customized, personalized report with resources that organizations may find valuable. So I'll stop here. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Neha. I see a few questions coming in, but I would suggest that we keep them for the end of the panel discussion. So I hope you can be patient to the two people who just asked the questions. Thank you very much, Neha. That was very insightful. It's a very exciting tool for sure. We're all very happy about it. And I think one takeaway from your explanations is really that it's actionable, it's suitable for any organization of any size, and it really gives targeted recommendations. So it's really accessible, easy to find information for organizations to really get their hands on improving, and without having to think about, okay, how can we actually improve if we know what we need to improve. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And now I would like to move over to David, who has actually used the tool. David, you are the former M&E lead of MMWCA. You have moved on to a different position. And so we're really happy that you are still taking the time, even though you're not working for the organization any longer, and can still share your experience when you use the tool. You went through all the iteration process, like I mentioned. So we'd be very curious to hear you as almost a lead user, because you've done so much testing. Yeah, we would be curious to hear how MMWCA has used the Health Check tool to identify areas for improvement, and maybe you could share some of the key learnings that you gained by using the tool.
Thank you, Miriam, and I'm also happy to be here to also be able to share my experience. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are, David.
Yes. So I think MMWCA, we were among the organizations who were privileged to be able to benefit from the health check, the M&E Health Check tool. And one of the key things, IDinsight have been one of our key partners in terms of supporting M&E, being that we are locally led organizations that is mostly focused on issues on conservation. And I will mention LGT is one of our key donors, and they've really been very key in terms of providing capacity building and also supporting the organizations. And I would say they're one of the pillars that have really been geared towards supporting and also building the M&E system in MMWCA. So during the first, I think we've also benefited not only doing only the M&E Health Check, but we had also the privilege for one of our staff to be trained on data analytics bootcamp, which also we benefited. So it was like a follow-up, which was very key in terms of that. And I think during the health check, it was very exciting because we had the privilege, we were given the tool, the link, and we were able to go through the process, looking at areas where we need from just looking at issues on the performance framework, just looking at mission alignments and other areas. And we were able to feel it. And one of the key interesting part was we made the process to be participatory in the sense that we were able to engage also the program team in terms of looking at it in a bigger way. And to mention, we went through this, and I remember we were able to get reports based on the insights, which was very useful in terms of helping us also in areas of our strengths. We were able to identify our strengths, and also we were able to identify areas of improvements and where we really needed to put more efforts. And for us, one of the things that came out very strongly was that we were able really, our organization, it was a multi-donor organization. So we had several donors. And I believe during the process of going through the health check was really an eye-opener in terms of even aligning our strategy theory of change, because we had different donors who had different ways of looking into M&E. And this also helped us align in terms of now trying to really narrow down to, as an organizations, that these are the TOC we want to look at a strategic level, so that all the other donors will be like supporting in terms of helping us achieve our strategic objectives and also indicators. So we had to go backward and really to align our strategic objectives. And we were able to review our TOC and also identify the key performance indicators, what we wanted to look at in terms of at an organizational level. And remember, as a result of this health check, we were also able to develop an organizational med plan that really looks comprehensively, and also that will be supported by this other program. So all this really aligned that well. And if I looked in the areas of improvement, as a result of also doing this health check, it was an eye-opener in terms of even coming up with the capacity building trainings, specifically geared towards developing both the staffs, in-house, to develop the staff capacity. And also, it also gave an opportunity for us to also now look at the financial resources. That one of the things that we realized that there was underfunding for M&E as a department. So one of the things that now we were realizing is now we needed a strategy that would really look at issues that when you were doing proposals, that there was adequate funding, between 10 to 5% for funding. And now M&E was actively being involved in terms of even resource mobilization and also in development of proposals, and also assigning adequate financing that we need this amount to be done. And also one of the things that we needed in improvements, and I believe MMWC was geared towards that, was on data analytics. These were areas where we still were very new, and also in terms of even identifying the learning agenda and learning questions for the organizations. So we realized there was also a gap there that we did not align that in terms of when we were developing the organizational main plan, in terms of even looking at the key performance. So for us, these learning questions was really becoming a very key component in terms of looking at evidence in the future, and also now even trying to do resource mobilization, resource funding for even doing baseline for our strategic plan. So I think for us, this was a very interesting journey, and I think it was also an eye opener as MMWCA, looking at all these aspects, and it has been a journey, and I think it has been like something that now even the whole organization now is being, they're able to now appreciate M&E. And I'll say IDinsight have also been very key, because even after the M&E Health Check, we also had in-person meetings where areas where we felt we had weaknesses or areas of improvements, we could still engage them and also seek some capacity building in terms of being supported to strengthen the areas. And also we used heavily the resources that were available. So those resources, we were able just to pick them from the tool and read more deeply in-depth reading, and also to be able to align our M&E system processes for the organizations. So for us, those are the key learnings, and I believe we are still on the journey, and we are trying to work in terms of looking at improving our M&E system holistically, and also having a very robust M&E system that will be evidence in terms of even providing right data for even management decision making. So I feel it has been a very useful journey for us. Thank you. Over to you, Miriam.
Thank you, David. And it's, I think, also for us, for IDinsight and LGT Venture Philanthropy, it's also amazing to hear in a summarized version now from you what really happened. I know we had lots of debriefing calls when you used the tool, when you went through the project, but this was really concise. So very happy to hear that. And it really sounds like quite something got triggered after using the tool with the insights that you gained. So that's of course beautiful to hear. And you really used it as a foundation basically to then do all the changes that you mentioned within the organization. And I think that's really our intention also, to use the tool. Of course, it will not solve for everything, and it's really just a starting point, but we're really with this tool trying to build a solid foundation, this baseline understanding from which you can then build up. Thank you so much for sharing these insights. Very useful. Thanks, David. I hope there will be many interesting questions for you afterwards.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you. And with this, I would like to also hear from Akil. It's really an honor to have you here today. Whenever we talk about data analytics, we really like to refer to Educate Girls as you know, this exemplary use case of an organization that is really mastering data analytics and has really brought its impact to the next level. So Educate Girls is using machine learning techniques, and through that you have really managed to considerably scale your impact. And you've also worked with IDinsight closely to develop these machine learning algorithms. And so, of course, we're very curious to hear from you, and I hope we can all get inspired from your insights. Yeah. So how has the journey of your organization been? How have you gotten to where you are now, and how have advanced data capabilities helped you in scaling impact?
Thank you, Miriam, for inviting me as a panelist for this webinar. So, Educate Girls started in Rajasthan in 2007, and it's almost 16 years. We are running in the 16 years of implementation of our goal achievement toward the girl education. So, when we started, we started in around 50 schools in one district of Rajasthan, where we, our founder we found that the problem of girl education and the barriers surrounding it is very high, and she want to work toward the community. So from there we started many conventional method using pen and paper techniques to, to do the data entry and all those things. And then eventually, like, as the model got some success in those pilot schools, we, like expanded to some like around 200, 300 villages, and then moved to like around 5 to 6 districts where we have around 5,000 villages, 6,000 villages. So that time the problem started arising, like, okay, now how do you manage like, data from 5,000 villages and, carrying so much of, data around girls and, around also the problems around, like the carrying the paper and pen around it, and then, like to transfer all the data to the, head office and where the data entry is made in Excel. So data retrieving, data analysis, all those like, they are like little primitive techniques we were using in the, at that time. So that's where in like around 2015, 16, we introduced MIS in the organization. There we have the central data collection mechanism where all the data will be, stored at one place. So if I'm like in Rajasthan, I can work on data. If I'm in Mumbai, I can work from there also. So that's how they, like they started, working on data collection mechanism, and also started developing, M&E aspects of, of the M&E aspects of data in the organization. So till I think by 2020, we, like understand that there is a transition gap between the data collection and the data being used. That like it might be like around 1 week, 15 days. That depends on how the location. If the location is too remote, then it might take some more time to, collect the data, get it data entry. So in 2020, we achieved 100% digitization, and we are not using any pen and paper, method to do data entry. So it's just like, a half day or 1 day time gap is there. We are able to understand what is going in the field. Is our, field staff facing any problem? They need any support, or how we are, progressing against our target. So that is like some basic, methods we have used to increase the visibility of the data. In coming to the, advanced capabilities, so we started, like, relying on machine learnings and, using secondary data source to understand where we have to expand. Because initially we have, like, when we started working in 2007, we know, okay, this is the area which have, larger gender gap in education. So that is easier to, put, identify the which districts to expand. But as we are, I think, expanding in more and more districts, now the districts are, government is also spending, quite, like efforts on decreasing the gap. So after like 10 years, 15 years, we find it difficult to understand, okay, which are the geography where the problem is high, and also the return on investment in terms of efforts and, human resources high. So through that, we use machine learning to understand that, okay, this is the area where we are able to understand, expand using the machine learning technique. Apart from that, we also started using the data intelligence and historical performance to derive how we want to plan for our next year. For example, like, next year we have used, historical performance that, okay, we are able to reach this much of, efficiency last year. What we are, what efforts are we doing in to convert, toward the higher efficiency, and what is the gap? Is the training is the gap, or we need more handholding? All those, exercise we did to understand, okay, this is the gap where we have to work to, reach the higher efficiency, and based on that, we plan our next year. That, okay, this will be our target, and we have to work with that. Also, David had used like, many important thing like theory of change, M&E framework. So we started building that also. So first we, like, let down our theory of change, that what is the problem, what is the solution we try to identify, and then, what are the critical, indicators we want to measure. Against that, how we want to collect the data. Because as we know, like, there are like many organizations which collect data. 90% people know that data is collected, but almost 50% people don't know that how data is collected. They don't know what is the data sources, what is the frequency, and that lead to only like 5% or 10% data is being used. So that's why we, we want to focus on that area, that we understand our data. We don't want to overburden our field staff of, collecting more and more data and using less amount of it. So that's how we, use advanced data analytics for scaling the impact. Yes, Media.
Thank you so much, Akhil. I think we maybe have a bit more time, so I would like to have a follow-on question for you, Akhil. Would you have any best practices, based on all the learnings you have done over the past years, that could be useful for other organizations who would like to get started or like to advance their data analytics capabilities?
Okay. So I think first thing is a growing organization need to invest in M&E. They need to understand that data is the key for decision making, your your performance achievement, your evidence for funding, everything. So you need to spend your invest your time, efforts, and also some amount of funds also towards that. So, for example, we use, we invested in technologies to understand how the dashboards are, built, how the machine learning can be used to understand the areas of expansion, how we can, maintain the data quality using NLPs, fuzzy matching, all those kind of, advanced data analytics. We use to understand and maintain the data quality. So that is one area where all the organizations should invest and have quality time on it. And also in terms of implementation organization, where we collect data, then have some target driven approach. I think there we also need to incorporate quality in terms of internal monitoring. So that quality over achievement, I guess it's is the thumb rule should be taken care of, because that will give the confidence of whether we are going in the right direction or not through the right way. And also the fund, if we can, have some internal quality reports and, can demonstrate to funding agencies also, they will be able to have, better faith on us that yes, our funds are also utilized in the proper way. So I think that are the, key areas which organizations should work on.
Thank you so much, Akhil, for sharing the insights. And you, since you mentioned that it's important to allocate appropriate funding to actually develop M&E systems, I think it's a good transition back to the funder. So Tom, if I may ask you one final question. We've had now these two wonderful examples from the LGT Venture Philanthropy portfolio, MNWCA and Educate Girls, at different stages, but both of them doing important work and have really understood the importance of data analytics or data in the broadest term. Why is LGTVP as a funder putting so much emphasis on data analytics skills and when we choose partner organizations?
Sure. Thanks everyone for this great insight and sharing your experiences in working with the tool. I mean, coming back to what Akhil said, I mean, the opportunity that Educate Girls has with these machine learning algorithms to not have to go into a village in order to find out that in that village there's actually no out of school girl problem. So you have resources that need to travel, that need to go door to door in order to find out that a machine learning algorithm has been developed that is so accurate that Educate Girls relies heavily on their outreach strategy by the information of this algorithm, gives them the opportunity to only go or to focus its resources on those areas where the problem are the biggest. And that's a huge gain in allocating resources towards creating impact. So through that opportunity that the machine learning gave to Educate Girls, correct me if I'm wrong, Akhil, but I think your intention is that by 2025, so in 3 years from now, to address half of India's girl out of school problem on your own. So that's massive impact. I mean, in a country like India with millions, I don't know the exact number of out of school girls, that one organization is so capable of addressing half the problem on its own. That's, among other things, due to these insights that machine learning can give to them. That's correct, Akhil? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Good. I have my facts right here. And to come back to your question, Miriam, I think that's just an amazing story to be told, like what you can do in order to, or how you can use your resources more effectively and efficiently to create impact. Unfortunately, as also we heard from David and Akhil, that's a long way to get there, and not every problem can be solved through such an algorithm, also to be clear on that. But for organizations that see potential to get to that stage, there's a lot of development that needs to happen. And as Neha said, like the challenges are like manifold, like systems, know-how, just like understanding where to invest. And I think we as a funder, we are so excited that we have this tool because it helps us as well as the organizations that we fund to get orientation, more guidance towards where is the next step in building up capacity in order to ultimately get to levels that we just described and heard from Educate Girls. So it gives us clarity, it gives us guidance, and it gives us the opportunity to support organizations. And often what we hear back is that there is, when we talk about, let's say, data, I think there is quite a bit of interest in the philanthropic community to fund research, like to go out to a research study, come back with the results, publish a paper. And that's important, but equally important it is that organizations internally build up their capacity to constantly like get data, constantly analyze their data, and constantly create insights from that data to improve their models. That cannot be only solved through research, which is typically more long-term oriented. But in order to build up these capacities, funders need to pay software licenses. Not very sexy, but it's necessary. Funders need to pay for maybe statistics training of a data analyst. Not very exciting either. Like if you want to claim attribution to impact, then you say, like, oh, I funded a statistic training. But ultimately, I think that's what it's required in order to build up these capacities to tap into this impact potential. I think that's what we're convinced, thanks to the work with IDinsight and all the collaboration with our portfolio and other organizations. We now are at a stage where the tool can be really published and used by a wide audience. So we hope that not only our portfolio can benefit from it, but a wider set of organizations can use it, and also like have conversations with their funders. So like, see, that's possible. That's how we get there. Why don't you fund that as well? So we hope that we can contribute, and that's why also why we put so much focus on that specific discipline.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for elaborating on this. I think we've seen the topic from very different perspectives now, from a funder that tries to support organizations to build data analytics capacity, from IDinsight, someone who provides solutions for organizations, and of course organizations at different stages, how they deal with it and how they improve. So it was a super interesting discussion, at least I thought so, as a moderator listening to all of you. I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. And we have a few questions that we can maybe go into now. I see a few answered already. Neha, you were typing some answers already meanwhile. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So let's move to the open questions. Question from Caroline. Can this tool be used only by organizations who deliver services? For example, distributing bed nets, things that are easy to count? Or can it also be useful to organizations that do more system-related work, for example, policy influence, research, production, evidence synthesis, public awareness, etc.? These latter types of work don't lend themselves so easily to data. I think that will probably be a question for Neha. If you could share a few more words about who is the audience for the tool and who can use the tool.
Yeah, this is really a great question, and something that would have been difficult for me to type out, and so just best answered verbally. But thanks for the question. And yes, so you're right. So I think all parts of the tool will be most relevant for organizations that are implementing programs on the ground and trying to track progress of their programs over time, right? So these are exactly the kind of examples you provided: distributing bed nets, or running school-based programs, or ECD programs or nutrition programs, etc., which can be easily counted. For the research organizations or the ones that are into advocacy, etc., there are parts of the tool that might be relevant. So, for example, one of the modules of assessment is around overall strategy of the organization and the mission, right? And so that has questions about whether you have a clearly aligned TOC with your a theory of change with your organization strategy and vision, etc. So some of those questions might be relevant, but the tool overall might not be relevant for these kinds of organizations. So it is really best utilized and best, I guess, most helpful for organizations that are running programs on the ground and therefore measuring what they are delivering and want to track their progress over time.
If I may add on to this, Neha, I think from the feedback that we gathered during the iteration process, when we were really speaking to people who piloted the tool, it's absolutely right what you're saying, that maybe the report would be less meaningful if it's not someone who's running a program. But I think what I remember the feedback is that the questions that are in the survey trigger a lot on the organization side and really helps them to think through certain things. And I think some of the questions might definitely be relevant and help in thinking through. So yeah, even if the report is maybe less relevant. Thank you so much. Then maybe also a question for you, Neha. How long should we expect to receive the report after the self-assessment?
Yeah, so generally it takes about 5 minutes, really, but we can troubleshoot. So I can provide an email address because someone else also had the same question, and I can provide the email address that can look into this more carefully. But ideally, it should be like within 5 minutes, you should get a PDF of the report in your inbox. It would be helpful to check the spam folder because sometimes that's where emails end up. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. But I can also share the email address here of the person in our team who is sort of coordinating this, and then she will be able to troubleshoot this particular case. But otherwise, within 5 minutes, the report is generated typically.
Thank you, Neha. Then question for Tom. You touched upon in the introduction in the beginning of the webinar, but maybe you want to elaborate a bit. Could you please briefly talk about the problem definition need that led to the development of the M&E Healthcheck tool?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a combination of what we mentioned throughout the webinar. I think on the one hand, seeing organization and being inspired by Educate Girls, it's the example that Akhil and I just shared, that you have that ability or that insights that sit in data potentially, but to extract these insights, it's not so easy. You need capabilities, you need the right systems and processes, but they are rare and they are not easy to develop. And I think that was kind of the starting point, how we can help organizations develop that. And as I said initially, like the different things that we tried led us to the conclusion that, not surprisingly in a way, that there's no cookie cutter approach that can be applied to that, but it's very custom input or custom strategy necessary depending on your needs and your existing capabilities and also your resources. And I think to find out where you stand on that journey I think that was probably the main problem definition that we had when developing the M&E tool. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but yeah, I think that's where it all started.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Maybe a few additional comments here. We're also running a fellowship program, the LGT Impact Fellowship Program, which is part of the capacity building services that we offer to our portfolio organizations. And I think also there, the feedback was very often from organizations who participated in the fellowship program when we asked them, where would you like to build additional capacity? And very often they mentioned in the data analytics space. And so I think this also contributed to how we realized that, you know, there is a strong need for portfolio organizations to work on that front. And then also our investment managers that work really closely with the portfolio organizations. I think they really hear firsthand from the organizations what the pain points are. And I think also there was a lot of feedback that that this is something that needs work to be done. Yeah, good. I think that's it for the questions. Absolutely. I give you a few more seconds if you come across any other questions. And meanwhile, please share details of the fellowship here. Sure, I can type that as well. And meanwhile, before I forget, I would also like to say a big thank you, of course, to the panel, but we've had lots of people working in the background. And so Loreen and Puneet from IDinsight, who were also very much involved in getting this webinar, organizing this webinar, bringing you all together. So thank you very much for all your work. And I think the entire project team also on IDinsight side that has been working together with Tom and me over the past 2 years. So there was, I wrote it down somewhere, I have to cheat a bit. And there was Mark, Jeff, Rob from IDinsight in the very early stages of the project when we started brainstorming of how we could support organizations. And then also on the more specific projects, Neha, together with Tony and Lavanya, you were working very closely with also our portfolio organizations that were there as guinea pigs, who are very patient and also providing us feedback, sharing exactly what would be most valuable for them. In our pilot projects, we worked with portfolio organizations, Foundation for Ecological Security in India, and there were team members who were supporting Mothers to Mothers was involved also, so lots of positive feedback and involvement, and MMWC, of course, David as representative. So also big thank you to all these different stakeholders who are involved in bringing this M&E Health Check tool to life. Good. Final questions. This is a good initiative. I will take time and try the tool. Please do. One more hand up, please, Tom.
I thought as a last thing, I would like to share that we often talk about how can we measure capacity building as a funder. So when we go back to our stakeholders, like, hey, you fund capacity building, like, how do you measure that? I think that it's also a great tool to do that, because we plan to apply the tool with all our portfolio organizations. So we have kind of like the baseline, and then through our investments in this capacity in our portfolio, if we can reconduct or reassess together with our portfolio their capacities over time, hopefully the tool can also show us a positive trend that our funding in organizational capacity building around data is actually leading to higher ratings in our portfolio and in the organization. I think that's also how the tool can be really useful from a funder side.
Thank you, Tom. Neha, your hand is also up.
Yes, just one last plug for more organizations to try this, because that will also help us refine the tool. And so, for example, if you see a functionality that's missing, like someone was saying in the chat, that can this tool be available in French, for example, those are functionalities that we currently don't have in this version of the tool, but do submit your feedback form, because the tool has gone from pillar to pillar and gain strength from all the piloting that we've done and all the feedback we've received from the organization. So really, really encourage everyone to take the tool, administer the tool, and hope you find it helpful. But please do also share feedback, because that is what helps us improve the tool. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think with this, I hope we can all start the day or end the day, depending on where you are, on an inspired note. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating, the audience, the panel. It was great having you, and yeah, wish you all the best. And we hear from you through the tool, hopefully, with your feedback and your notes that you submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Been a pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.